Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Preface. I would like to apologize for the length of this tale, but in my humble opinion, it's worth the read. Trigger warning. In the course of this story, I went to the restroom in my backyard. I had what I felt was a good reason to, and precisely no one would have seen me doing so if they weren't entitled. This story begins with myself and my dog in the backyard, to which we've been banished because the inside of my house was being painted. Dogs and wet paint are a thing that do not mix well at all. Bath time for my puppy is akin to all-out war. I would say the nuclear option, but that's reserved for when he must on the cone of shame. While we were outside killing time waiting for the house to be dog safe again, I discovered I very much had to go to the bathroom, and since my backyard is pretty well secluded and only visible really from above or by someone who was way up into my yard, I decided to go then and there. After the sigh of satisfaction, and before the stream had finished, I heard a very high-pitched whining sound, and when I looked up to see what the sound was, I saw a quadrotor drone floating above my backyard, presumably watching me. I don't really have a shy bladder, so I finished peeing. I went back to my regularly scheduled dog entertainment programming. Later that day after dinner, there was a knock on my door, and upon opening it, I saw a very uncomfortable-looking police officer. He asked if I could step outside to speak with him, and I did so. He then asked me if I'd urinated in my yard recently. When I raised an eyebrow and sort of looked at him like, seriously? He clarified that someone had called in and reported me for doing so, and the report has to be investigated since I live so close to a school. Close as a crow flies. There is a patch of swamp between my house and a school that is not easily navigable. With a car, it's closer to a mile to actually get there. I confirmed that I had and showed the officer where I'd done so, and then told him that the only people that had seen me was my dog and someone flying a drone over my backyard, and I was reasonably sure my dog hadn't phoned the police on me. The officer thanked me for my explanation and said I very likely was not in trouble, but he would take it as a favor if I just used the toilet for the time being. The next day, my dog was in a dog run by himself while I was working. I had the door open in case he started barking at neighbors or what have you. Suddenly, he loses his furious twerk cry and starts making distress noises. I look outside to see what's going on, and there is a quadrotor buzzing around my dog, tormenting the poor baby. I do what anyone should do in that situation and grab my hose, set the nozzle to anti-aircraft high-pressure jets for the uninitiated, and zap the drone with the hose. Drone ceases operation and falls to the ground, and my dog Rana had been shooed on a little bit before I reclaimed the thing, but it seemed fine. I took my dog and the drone inside and figured I'd hear from someone sooner or later. About an hour later, my doorbell rings, and there is a 12 or 13-year-old kid on my steps with a bike helmet on and his bike thrown into my garden. I ask if I can help him, and he demands I return his drone. I ask him why I should, when all he's done with it, in my experience, is harass me. He starts foot stomping and throwing a shrieking tantrum. My cousin, who's 7, had grown out of throwing many moons ago, demanding I get the drone back now. He actually concluded with, "And that's final." I found that frankly adorable and started laughing. I told him to come back with a parent if he wanted the drone back because he is not capable of acting like a grown-up for this conversation. I went back into my house. The kid actually tried and failed to destroy some of my garden before picking his bike back up and going home. Around 6 that evening, there is another knock at the door. The kid's back was a man who is a little bit older than I am. I think he knew his kid was full of it because he sheepishly asked me if I'd dropped his son and stolen his drone. I smirked a little bit at this and told him exactly what his son had done with that drone and how it happened to come into my possession. His face couldn't decide between chagrin and fury. He turns and asks his son if this is really what happened. His son just starts bawling because he knows he's caught. And the dad says, when I bought you that drone, I said there was one rule. You don't bother people with that drone. The dad apologizes on his son's behalf and says I can keep it. The kid emits a squawk of indignation and fury and says, I am telling mom. There's a bit of a scuffle between them. While the dad wrangles the kid back into the vehicle, they arrived in. And then the dad comes back and gives me his cell number with instructions to text him if his ex-wife should darken my doorstep. I said I would, then waved goodbye, mostly to needle the kid because the twerp had it coming. A few days later, around lunchtime, I heard an ominous bang sound, followed shortly after by pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. As I got closer to the door, I could hear high-pitched shrieking and I connected some dots. Before opening my door, I found the drone deck contact in my phone and texted, I think she's here. And I opened my door and was greeted with the sight of an extremely irate, slightly younger than usual Karen. When the woman sees me, she starts screaming at me for stealing from her precious boy and how I'm just the worst human being to grace the face of the earth in her estimation. She's got quite the head of steam worked up and I can see almost immediately that I am not allowed to talk. So I decide to pour gasoline on this fire and send a follow-up text. I can see why I got a divorce. Right when I hit send, this woman slaps the phone out of my hand and onto the ground and demands I look at her while she's talking to me. I go for a non sequitur and say, at me? This startles a Karen long enough for me to clarify. Talking to me? This isn't a conversation. It's worth noting that it was about 12:30 p.m. and this woman had a Merlot breath so strong I felt like I was getting a buzz just being yelled at by her. She lets out a squawk and starts to puff up like a blowfish, readying another verbal salvo when I hold up a finger, stoop to grab my phone, and then speed dial the police non-emergency line on my phone because it's pretty obvious how this is going to go. When she demands to know who I'm calling, I tell her calmly that I'm calling the police. Her response was, and this is a direct quote, "Good. Let's see how the pigs deal with a mosquito like you who steals from children." The operator actually heard that, and bless this woman's heart, she actually said, I think I understand the nature of your call. Can you give me the address where this is happening? I did, and the operator thanked me and said the response was on the way. While I was talking to the operator, I got a reply from the dad. Oh god, tell me she's not drunk. Deciding I didn't need my phone slapped out of my hand again, I just sent a thumbs down reply to the text and settled in to get yelled at incoherently until backup arrived. It wasn't all that long in coming, maybe 5 minutes total before the boys in blue showed up. It wasn't until they pulled up that I noticed this woman had missed my driveway and actually winged my mailbox pulling up onto my lawn. The police separates us and I actually wind up talking to the cop who urged me to use the toilet like a civilized human being. I tell my side of the story, and then the officer I was talking to goes to assist the other officer who was trying to figure out what Karen was going on about because she's getting steadily more belligerent and violent. He winds up slapping one cop and trying to bite the other before she's restrained and bundled into the back of one of the cruisers. At this point, the dad has pulled up and looks completely aghast, but he does confirm my side of the story with the police. The officer thanked me and the dad for our time and promised a tow truck is coming for the woman's vehicle. They put their heads together and do police things. And the dad leaves to go and do whatever it was he was doing before Karen reared her ugly head. I did get the last laugh though. While the police were filling out forms or whatever it is police do after a horror show like this, I zipped into my house and grabbed the slightly chewed and no longer damn drone. Making sure Karen was watching, I sauntered over to my trash cans and dipped a piece of junk in and dusted my hands off before walking back inside. I'd already confirmed the drone was dead from getting hosed. I was going to throw it out either way. This just made me happy. Near my school, I'm in year 7 or 6th grade for you dear Americans, there is an Asda. For my American friends, it's like a British Walmart. All the kids from my school go there every day, but my school recently developed a new way of paying for stuff, and not as many go now. Me and my 2 friends, names are Sev and Isabel, were inside. We walked down to the biscuit section where the food is cheap and is also next to the bakery. After grabbing our stuff, we wandered down to the bakery aisle to see a 90-ish-year-old lady reaching for the last loaf of bread. She was taking her time and Sev, being the tallest, went forward to help the lady. Suddenly, we saw the heck trophy herself, Karen. She flew around the corner like an ice skater, shoved the old lady and then ran off with the bread. Sev, being a tall, autistic, scary Russian female with dark glasses, followed Karen to go have a chat with her, and me and Isabel went to help the old lady. Turns out when Karen had shoved her over, she had shattered her pelvis, and we called an ambulance and the police, and within minutes, the old lady was in an ambulance, and this is how Karen's conversations went. "Miss, we're going to ask you to put the bread down," one of the officers told her. "Why? I paid for this bread with my own money. It is mine." We watched the surveillance footage. You didn't even pay for the bread after damaging somebody else for it. Then she acted all sad. "My family has no money and we need food. This is the only thing my son can eat because he's allergic to everything." Bear in mind, a lot of what she was wearing was Gucci. The two officers then handcuffed her and told her that she's being arrested for assault and theft. Then she was spit off in a cop car. A few weeks later, the old lady somehow got in contact with me and my friends and thanked us for helping. Turns out her husband has a very serious disease and his favorite meal is her homemade salmon and cream cheese sandwiches. Bit of background: I've worked in the pub trade since '87. I've been a kitchen manager, a pub manager, and tested multiple new POS, point of sale, and TNA, time and attendance systems for different companies. For my mental health, I decided a few years back to take a drop back down to a shift manager. It just wasn't worth the stress for the money and it ended up causing me a full breakdown. Basically, I kinda know what I'm talking about. A few years back, the place I work at employed a new DM, deputy manager, one step below the PM, pub manager, and my line boss. Realistically, he only got the job because I refused the promotion. He was fresh out of university with a lovely shiny new piece of paper showing he knew everything that is possible to know about management. And obviously, with his years, a massive 3 years of experience working behind a bar, he could never be wrong. Our company has SOPs, standard operating procedures, that are basically the rules you need to follow to do every task. I've been there since they were first implemented and actually helped write several of them with regards to the POS and TNA systems, since like every set of rules there are exceptions in certain rare situations. Our pub, being a virtual 24 hours operation unit, is one of those where rare situations crop up regularly. I was on a run of close shifts following on from the deputy manager's shift, and the pub manager was on holiday, so the deputy manager was in total charge. He decided to make his mark and sort things out. I received a call that he needed me an hour earlier to discuss a few things. When I turned up for the meeting, he had a ream of paperwork in front of me. Exception reports detailing closing down and dealing with the POS and TNA corrections I had done. When I turned up for the meeting, he had a ream of paperwork in front of me. Exception reports detailing closing down and dealing with the POS and TNA corrections I had done to his work during the day, plus printouts of SOPs. He started lying to me about how I was breaking the SOPs every night and how disappointed he was in me for not knowing or following the correct procedures like he did. I should never correct my superior's work. This was a formal meeting with minutes being taken, and he threatened me with a full disciplinary action if I didn't follow the SOPs exactly, emphasizing his point by pressing his finger dramatically on a printed out SOPs in front of him. I asked him in my nicest possible voice to clarify that he wanted me to follow these SOPs he was pointing at every night, which he answered rather condescendingly in the affirmative. Cue the malicious compliance. Dutifully, I took his printed out copies and swore I'd follow them to the letter. Every night for my close downs, I used the printed out copies he had given me. Can any of you see where this is going yet? The next night was the end of the week, so all the TNA needed to be closed and the end of the week procedures for the POS completed. I was on days off and the deputy manager was closing, so he'd have to do it all. About 1 a.m., I got a call from him because none of the end-of-week processes would work and they had to be done before he left. He tried everything and had even tried to call the pub manager to help him. The pub manager's response was, "Call him." He meant me. He knows the system inside out and will tell you what you need to do. I took great pleasure in telling him the SOPs he had given me were for a pleasure pub, that we had a specific set of SOPs for 24 hours pubs detailing slight differences we needed to do, otherwise the end-of-week processes would fail. Altering start times of some staff by 1 minute so they fell on the correct start day, and altering the POS system start time by 1 minute so it fell on the right day as well. This was something I did every night on close and was why I had all the exception reports he was complaining about. Fixing it so that the end-of-week work was simple but incredibly repetitive, it would take an hour or so. My parting comment was, just follow the specific SOPs. It's all explained in there, and if you have any issue, call me back. I know those SOPs well because, well, I wrote them. Next shift I found out that he had left work over 3 hours late that night, and the pub manager had given him a rather stern talking to about learning to walk before he ran and who to go to if he thought something was wrong. In the end, he became a decent deputy manager. I was sad to see him go when he got his own pub. He called me the other day to help him with an issue he was having with the TNA system, which is what brought this malicious compliance memory back. I'm a disabled, overweight, and scarily ugly-looking woman. I'm into wood art and generally doing DIY in my home in Scotland. I'm also a British Army veteran. Due to a back injury I sustained in the military, I can't walk more than a few meters, so I get around on a mobility scooter complete with Armed Forces veteran stickers on it, front and back. I'm proud to have served. My local-ish big box DIY store famously wears orange. I also believe the company is owned by the same folk that own a US big box store that famously wears orange. I go fairly often enough that I know where many things are, dressed in jeans, a floral print top, and slip-on shoes. No orange anywhere. I was down the electrical supplies aisle looking for just the right light switches and sockets for the remodel I'm doing in my long hallway at home. I pick one up every now and then to match with a color swatch I have brought with me to see how they look. Most of them I put directly back on a hook I picked it out from, and others go in a basket on the footplate of my scooter. Also in the aisle is an old man. I'd say he's probably in his 80s. He's looking at the shelves but seemingly rather confused. Being nice, I ask him if he's okay. That's mistake number 1. He tells me he's looking for an adapter so he can plug in his electric toothbrush to charge. I know exactly what he needs and show him exactly where they are. Mistake number 2. He smiles and gives me a grateful thank you. And off he goes happily with his adapter in hand to the tells. I feel good. I've helped someone out. So I go back to my own shopping, or at least I try to. Excuse me. I turn to see a young man with a handful of different switches. Which one of these should I use for an internal switch for an external light? I look as I'm feeling chuffed with being able to help. Mistake number 3. I point to one that has a light on it so you can see when the switch is on. I'll probably use that one, so you know if the light is on or off if you can't see the light itself. He smiles happily, dumps all the other switches on a shelf, and starts looking at other items on the shelves. So I go back to my own shopping, or at least I try to. Again, enter Karen. Excuse me? Mistake number 4. Yes, I replied. Where do I find that stuff to put on walls to fix a hole? It's down the other end of the store, somewhere near the painting supplies, somewhere near the tills. Yes, but where and which shelf? Not sure, just take a look down there. A member of staff might be able to help better. I need you to show me. Sorry, just look down there, I'm about to pay for my shopping. Why you need to show me? I don't know the right stuff. Look down there. There is a big banner by the right side. There may be someone there who works here. Why you work here? It's your job to help customers. Show me where it is and what I need. Me getting annoyed now. It's not my job. I don't work here. Am I wearing an orange apron? Ask someone wearing an orange apron. They'll help you. I start trying to roll my scooter forwards toward the tells. Karen, faster than a speeding bullet, steps directly in my path only an inch or two in front of me. Now, these scooters are heavy and solid. I won't take damage from hitting an ankle. There was absolutely nothing I could do to stop quickly enough. Karen shrieks. You hit my leg. You tried to run me down. Ow! And the tears flow. Her shriek alerted a couple of staff members who came running. She ran me down. I want the manager. I want the police. I want an ambulance. I want her fired and arrested. Then a mature-looking man in a suit with a large orange badge with his name and the word manager on it comes running up. Also alerted by the shriek and shouting, manager asks what happened. Your assistant in a lazy crippled chair, yes, really, she said that, tried to kill me. I want her arrested and fired, and also the store for my injuries. What assistant? This lady doesn't work here. She does, and she tried to run me down. My ankle is probably broken. No, she's still standing, stomping around, shouting, and generally not behaving like someone with a broken ankle. Maybe a spoiled toddler though. I say. She asked me where something was, I told her where to look. She got demanding and behaved like a spoiled child, and then deliberately stepped in front of me when I went to leave. No way I could stop in time. Liar, you do work here. I saw you helping 2 other people. Him. Pointing at the young man who stopped to watch the commotion. Yes, I helped. Out of the goodness of my heart because, well, I'm a nice person. That doesn't mean I work here. The young man says, yeah, she was nice enough to help me. I asked her because I saw her helping out an old bloke. I knew she didn't work here. Manager says, yeah, she doesn't. Let's go back to the office to talk about this. Then we'll see what needs doing. And you'll call the police and an ambulance and fire her. I shake my head. So off we go to the office. Karen remembers her broken ankle and starts putting on a deliberate limp. On the wrong leg though. Moaning all the way to the office about her broken ankle. In the office, the manager invites Karen to sit. I am barely in the office as my scooter doesn't have the turning circle to get further in. Manager says, let's start with the CCTV and see what happened. He turns the CCTV monitor around so we can all see it. He pressed some buttons and ran the video back to where I rode into the aisle. I am seen looking at products. I am seen talking to the old man. I am seen talking to a shelf. I am seen talking to the young man and pointing at a product in his hands. I am seen talking to Karen and pointing down the store. She's seen looking angry with fists clenched talking to me. I'm seen moving off and she's seen rushing past me and deliberately stepping in my path, where I obviously don't have time to stop. Just so you know, I'm a retired police officer. Do you really want the police and an ambulance? Your ankle is clearly not broken and it's clear what really happened. Do you really want to get charged for wasting police time? They do that these days as the police are short of manpower and won't thank you for calling them for what is clearly your own fault. They may even charge you with a hate crime was what I and my staff heard. Or will you just leave the store and not come back? Karen says, But, really? Karen wilted. She stands and with no sign of a limp walks out of a member of staff escorting her meekly out. I was thanked for my patience and handed a gift card for your trouble and so you're not put off using our store. I paid for my wares using the gift card which covered the whole cost plus some more credit remaining on a card for my next visit. I may not help anyone else next time though. My husband and I bought a franchise. At the time I was working at another job while my husband was taking over the business and no one in the network had met me yet. On the day before the takeover, my husband, the previous owner, and the company's area manager were doing a final check and stock take in the store during business hours. I was meeting them in a store after work to go over the finals with them and meet everyone as I would eventually be heavily involved in the business, payroll, accounting, and HR side of the things. I should add something important. Taking over the business meant that we could choose to keep the current staff on, or we could choose not to and hire new people without any legal repercussions. As of the moment I walked up to the store for the first time, all of the current staff had been told by the previous owner that their jobs were safe. We didn't want to fire everyone who knew the job to replace them with unskilled people. That's just silly. All they had to do was meet us and obviously make a good impression. I walked up to the front counter, it's a retail food business, and smiled and greeted the sales team member, Karen. I later found out Karen had been working in this particular store for about 6 years and had been with the brand for approximately 9 years. I was met with a glare and a sour look, would you believe it? No greeting. Not even a basic hello. Now Karen didn't know who I was, and for all she knew, I was a regular customer coming to buy a product. I was immediately annoyed at this nonsense. With a smile on my face, I introduced myself. Nothing. She continued to glare. Didn't introduce herself or even attempt to crack a smile. She didn't even say hello. I was now extremely annoyed at how rude Karen was, and working in customer service for years myself and having thought it as a profession and being, a decent human, I was shocked that someone with her demeanor still even had a job. I then quite abruptly told her to let me in because I was one of the new owners and was expected to be at the meeting in a store. With a huff, she opened the door and let me through. She still couldn't even crack a smile or be remotely polite to me, which made me so angry even more because she was expecting to be kept on with us. After a few minutes talking to my husband, the area manager, and the previous owner, I told him that level of service won't be accepted in this store and that we would definitely not be keeping her on. My husband agreed 100% and it was decided. On my way out and as the store was closing, I said goodbye to good old Karen and casually dropped in. It was lovely to meet you today, Karen. However, we won't be keeping you on at this store, so please ensure you take all of your belongings when you leave. Have a great night. Karen was visibly shocked, and the joy of watching her face drop realizing she's no longer had a job was blissful. My husband stayed until after closing to make sure Karen didn't do or take anything she shouldn't, and I skipped merrily back to my car. Enjoy unemployment, Karen. So about 5 years ago, I was working for a cable/home phone/ISP company in a support for frontline staff role. Part of this was faking being a supervisor so the actual supervisors don't have to be verbally abused. Garbage system, I know, but what can you do? Well, I get a call from a frontline person telling me this guy, let's call him Kyle, has asked to speak to someone about his re-rental properties. I take the call and get on the phone with the guy. Hi there. Thanks for choosing X-Corporate. Yeah, you said that I wouldn't have to pay for long distance on these 3 accounts. Oh, well, let me go have a look at the notes on the accounts and, no, you will cancel my services at all 3 places. He shouted at me. I just need to look at the notes written on your account too. No, you won't. If this is a service you're providing, just cancel them all. Still shouting. Cue malicious compliance. I need to make sure he's in fact the guy who can cancel these services at all 3 accounts. I ask him when he would like the services to stop. Why are you still asking me things? Immediately. Okay, sir, I just want to make sure you're asking me to cancel all services, phone, cable, and internet. A series of swear words followed by, yes, all 3 services at all 3 places. Now, I should point out that it was pretty close to midnight, and these places, being rental properties on a Friday night, probably had people living there. Also, it didn't seem that he lived at any one of them. So, I went about going through each of the 3 accounts and shut down the services, the phone, the cable, and the internet. Now, before anyone says, oh, you took their phone away, that's dangerous, well, you can plug a phone outlet into anywhere, and even if it doesn't have service, you can still call emergency services. I went through and told the system to shut everything down. It also gives us the option to immediately stop the services from working, so I said yes. Now, this means that everything stops at the properties at once. Everything, immediately. Watching TV, not anymore. Looking at memes, nope. Oh, were you making a phone call? Not anymore. I can only imagine the series of panicky texts and cell phone calls that guy had that evening because everything was shut off. The next time I was at work, I checked the notes on these closed accounts only to find that the tenants had called in and were told the services were cancelled, followed by notes from an actual supervisor, because if you get loud enough, the real soups have to do their jobs. That said, after reviewing the call Kyle had with me, they felt I did exactly what the customer had asked and there was nothing else we would do. Turns out Kyle was mad at me for following his directions and then got his tenants to call him enraged after midnight about how nothing they had